There are places on this earth where time itself seems to forget to move. Places where the air hangs thick and silent, heavy with humidity and secrets. We found such a place. A single, isolated, miserable patch of canopy. Barely a mile square. Miles from civilization, if you could call the nearest gas station civilization. They call it the Tangle, an emerald pocket of jungle, utterly unremarkable, save for one defining feature. It was about to become the epicenter of an experiment so profoundly wonderfully wrong it makes your skin crawl, though granted your skin may simply be reacting to the humidity. The scientific community, a group that occasionally confuses groundbreaking with utterly insane, had a theory. A simple, elegant, and frankly, disturbing theory. They wanted to know, what happens when you introduce an overwhelming, paralyzing force into an already delicate ecosystem? Not fire, not flood, something far more patient. They chose the three-toed sloth, Bradipus variegatus, nature's greatest argument for taking a very, very long nap. Built for silence, built for camouflage, built for a movement rate that would make a geological shift look like a sprint. And we released 5,000 of them. 5,000 bodies, all fur and slow-blinking menace, converging on the same tiny patch of green. It wasn't an invasion, it was a stagnation, a terrifying biological traffic jam in the sky. The initial days were deceptively calm. From our hidden observation posts, little more than rickety, mosquito-infested blinds that looked like a peaceful, if ridiculously crowded, sloth habitat. But the dread wasn't in the movement, it was in the lack of it. Imagine a single shadow cast across your bedroom wall that never moves. Now imagine 5,000 of them hanging above you, perpetually watching. Because the jungle isn't just about what is there, it's about what isn't. And suddenly, nothing else was there. The vibrant, chaotic life of the Tangle began to fade. The smaller monkeys, the brilliant macaws, the chattering insects, they didn't flee. They simply vanished. It wasn't a slaughter. It was a surrender. The sheer, overwhelming presence of that much slowness created a vacuum. A biological black hole where all momentum ceased. The sloths didn't hunt. They didn't threaten. They just hung. Close enough to touch, but too far to escape. And every day, the sounds of the jungle grew quieter, replaced by a suffocating, almost spiritual silence. The kind of silence you feel in your teeth. The air itself felt heavy. Oxygen. Every tree branch, every vine, was a potential anchor for a pair of black, vacant eyes. The scientists recorded a drop in the ambient sound level by nearly 40 decibels in the first week. The jungle, the most raucous place on Earth, was being hushed by a legion of furry, thry-clawed undertakers. And that, my friends, is when the true terror began to set in. Because if nothing moves, then you're the only thing that can. The original team, a small, highly caffeinated crew of ecologists and a truly miserable sound engineer, expected a crisis of competition. A battle over the choicest leaves, a slow-motion territorial skirmish. What they got was infinitely more chilling, high proficiency. The sloths didn't fight. They simply saturated the canopy. Each creature found its vertical niche, spaced with unnerving mathematical precision. The result was a living ceiling, a net of bone-white claws and matted brown fur. And the forest floor, once a place of filtering light and sudden movement, was plunged into perpetual, humid twilight. One of the ecologists, a bright-eyed idealist named Dr. Patel, started documenting strange psychological changes. Not in the sloths, of course, they look perpetually bewildered already, but in themselves. She wrote in her journal, "The stillness is infectious. I haven't blinked in 20 minutes. It feels unnecessary." The slow pace became a physical weight. Our crew felt their heart rates drop. Their reflexes dulled. It's the ultimate evolutionary psychological warfare. The sloths weren't predators. They were an environmental mood. A tangible, oppressive apathy that seeped into the human observers. They started moving slower, speaking quieter. It was less of an expedition and more of a wake. Then came the structural failures. The canopy, overburdened by 5,000 new, non-moving residents, began to groan. Limbs didn't snap dramatically. They simply gave way with a mournful, drawn-out tear. The sloths, tethered to their spots, would descend. Not fall, nothing that quick. They would simply unhook and glide through the gloom, a dark, heavy mass in the suffocating air, only to slowly, deliberately, re-anchor themselves lower down. It turned the Tangle into a vertical graveyard of dead wood and living, unblinking eyes. And if you watched closely, you could see them. The small, desperate faces of the creatures who couldn't escape the sloth's psychological net. Trapped, waiting for a catastrophe that was moving far, far too slowly to outrun. The experiment wasn't about sloths surviving. It was about everything else ceasing to try. And by the second week, our team was running low on coffee and even lower on hope. The silent takeover of the Tangle is far from over. Will Dr. Patel's team survive the psychological pressure of a world that refuses to move? And more importantly, are the sloths truly innocent? Click the bell to subscribe so you don't miss our next installment, where the speed of disaster is measured in millennia. And let us know in the comments, if you were trapped, what's the first thing you'd stop doing?